This episode is not sponsored, but we encourage you to help support the small businesses, charities, and organisations that we mention.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Our Circle. I'm Rhiannon.
And I'm Jess.
And today is Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the mamas out there. It's Mother's Day in the UK. I know it's not Mother's Day all over the world. I don't actually get why that is, like why we have a completely different Mother's Day to everyone. But anyway, it's Mother's Day here, so happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day, Jess.
Oh, thank you so much.
I mean, we're pre-recording this and we've recorded a couple of extra parts to this episode, which will come in a bit later with our guests Chloe and Meg, but I wanted to just have a moment talking about motherhood with Jess, and I wanted to use it as an opportunity for her to talk about her birth story, because I feel like we've touched on it in parts of our episodes, especially the one with Joe, but I think that was more from his perspective, so I thought let's find out about how
Ask away.
So take us back to that week.
Right, the day before was the 29th of September of 2019, and earlier in the day I was at my parents' house and I had like a lasagna. I had quite a big portion. I don't know, I was just really hungry. Then I was staying at Joe's parents' house at the time because we wanted to live together and experience everything together. And I went back to Joe's parents and had a dinner there as well. So I don't know if it's like my body was kind of like
enough, something has to
needed all the energy. Just carving up. And then that evening we were all getting ready for bed, and it must have been around like 10:30 or something. I was in the bathroom and I was just going to brush my teeth, and then I was like, there was like this kind of gush and my waters broke, and I was like, Joe. And then he was kind of like, oh my God. And then he started calling for his dad. And I was just kind of like, you can't just keep passing on the responsibility to someone else. Like, so what we were told in the classes was that he should call the triage at the hospital to tell them what's going on.
Right.
I think I ended up speaking to them because I was like, well, I know what's going on. I didn't feel like I was really having contractions at that point.
I don't know if this is TMI, but like, were you wearing pants when your waters broke, or were you like...
Yeah, so everything got soaked, and contrary to like what you might see in kind of TV shows, it's never ending. Like it's not just like one gush and that's it. It's like it was going on for hours, this gushing. So I had to like put on like a pad and like change my clothes, and basically my waters were actually green.
Oh right.
The reason for this, and it apparently is quite common with a baby who is overdue, was that Mila pooed inside me. So they want you usually, if you're not really starting contractions or you've got them very far apart, they tell you to stay at home until they're closer together. But they said because of a chance of infection, we need you to come in. So we went to both Joe's parents and Joe came to the hospital. We were in Kingston Hospital, which they were absolutely amazing. As soon as we got there were like loads of other pregnant people, and Joe found this so like strange. Every time we went to like a appointment at the hospital, there was just this room or this like part of the building that was just filled with like waddling pregnant people everywhere.
It's kind of strange though when you think about it. Like
like you wouldn't ever see so many pregnant people in one place together.
Never.
Really.
The only time I've ever experienced that was when I did a yoga class, and then the class after mine was is it prenatal? Is that when it's called prenatal? Yeah. And suddenly all these women and their bellies came wobbling in, and I was not waddling in. And I was just like, whoa, wait, hang on. And it just I didn't know, not that it was scary as such, but it was just a bit like there's a lot of life in here right now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is actually quite weird to think about. But yeah, we got there and the hospital staff were amazing. I got my own room I was in there for like until I gave birth, and then even for a bit after that. I can't honestly, a lot of it is a bit of a blur, but I would say I was in there for 2 days. I had a room to myself.
I didn't realize that, because when I came to visit you, you weren't in a room by yourself. You were with the other mothers and babies.
No, that's just because we had to stay there for a few more days because
Right.
both Mila and I were on antibiotics in the end, and that was all due to the fact that she'd pooed inside me.
Right.
But the labour was quite long. Maybe it felt longer because I was in hospital the whole time.
Maybe. Well, what was
I mean,
it
you
like
mentioned it felt long to you.
well, I mean, yeah, that's just because I didn't have any knowledge of what was happening. We didn't, and because we hadn't heard from you, we were like, it must be happening, but like, is it happening literally right now, or has it happened and we'll find out later? It was sort of,
Did I not message like our group chat or something to say I was going in?
we told you didn't need to message us. We said to Joe to tell his mum, and his mum would message us. And so, but in the end, I think both Joe and his mum, and maybe your mum as well, all messaged me, and I was just like, but what about so even going back to when you arrived at the hospital, in your brain, I know obviously it was a long time ago, and like you said, it was a bit of a hazy sort of memory considering how much everything was going on with you, but this sounds like a weird question, but was there at any point you were like, I'm about to have a baby, I'm at the hospital, sort of thing? Like, I know that sounds like a weird way to say it, but as in, or were you just like, get me to the next thing, get me to the next thing? Like, you weren't thinking about the fact that this was the pivotal moment in life that you were about to give birth?
Yeah, I don't think I was really that with it. I think I was just going along. I think I was just going along with every process, and it felt like, I think I was a bit worried at first because of the green kind of
Right.
waters, and I
Yeah.
was kind of worried because they like strapped me up to listen to the baby's heartbeat and just to make sure that everything was okay. But then as soon as they were like, yeah, everything's fine, and moved me into a room, like Joe's got pictures of me on his phone, like me just having a cup of tea and just like laying in the bed and just like, we're doing this. I just feel like throughout my whole pregnancy I was so ignorance is bliss. Like I wasn't someone who wanted to read up on every single thing because I just felt like it would freak me out, and I just kind of wanted to go along with it. And again, like when it came to getting a birth plan and all of that sort of thing, I was just like, I'll probably come up with some sort of ideal water birth thing in my head and then it won't happen, so I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I think I just went along with every stage, but then when the pain started kicking in, I think that's when
I was about to ask,
it
what was
got
that
real.
like? Yeah, I was going to say, did that happen quite quickly after your waters broke?
No,
A while.
no, it was sort of halfway through the next day. So I went into hospital. I was there about 11, half 11, and then it wasn't till late morning, afternoon the next day that I started to get pain that was so much that I felt like I needed to ask for painkillers, like pain relief. Like they gave me gas and air quite early on, but I was like, I don't feel like it's doing much for me. So I didn't really, like, I had a bit of fun with it, and I was like, oh Joe, feels quite fun. And he was a bit scared that he'd take it and then like one of the midwives would walk in and be like, what are you doing, and get told off. But he gave it a go as well. But then I got an epidural, and I felt frustrated at myself because I think I had this expectation that I had like a really high pain threshold and that I would be able to last quite a while until I would have painkillers, because I don't consider myself, I'm not someone who takes medication very often.
No.
And I didn't take medication like throughout my whole pregnancy. I didn't want to put anything in my body that I didn't feel needed to be there. But I was only 4 centimeters dilated, I think, at the point where I had an epidural. And that,
like, at that point, fuck this.
honestly, but bear in mind that I'd been in labor for such a long time.
Yeah.
And my body, I felt frustrated at my body because it wasn't progressing as I felt it should. I was like, why is it hurting this much when I'm still only 4 centimeters dilated? Like, it felt unfair. Like, I was just kind of like, I've been at 4 centimeters for so long. It'd been like that for hours, and they come every few hours to check how many centimeters you're at, and they kept coming back and being like, you're still only 4. And I was like, oh my god, but why does it hurt so much? But once I had the epidural, I tell you what, I wouldn't change a thing because it was wonderful. My only thing was that I wanted to be able to move around a bit more, but if you've had an epidural, that means the bottom half of your body is numb, so I had to stay in bed.
Right.
you know, part of my birth plan thing was they ask you what positions you might want to be in, and I was thinking maybe on all fours, but I couldn't do that because my bottom half was numb, so I wouldn't have been able to support myself if I
Right.
was on all
How
fours.
numb, as in, where does it stop? Like, where does it begin, even the numbness? Like, is your butt like asleep, or is it like,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
how
yeah, yeah. Your
far?
butt. So like it's kind of I mean, I'm pointing on myself as if you can see, but it's like, I guess your lower stomach, like just above your
Oh, right, okay.
kind of pelvis area. So yeah, it was a godsend, honestly. I couldn't recommend it more. It did start to wear off a bit when it came to the pushing, though. I was aware that I was pushing, but I don't think the pain was anything near
Was it more
what
like
it could have been if,
pressure pain or actual pain, do you think?
yeah, like tearing a bit, kind of like burning pain.
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't think
isn't
it
that
was
called
like,
something? What's it called? Like the Ring of Fire or something?
yeah, but I mean, if it is, then that
That was it.
makes complete sense. No, I think the pain could have been a lot worse had I not had the epidural. But I also think it gets to a point in your labor that if you're like close to pushing, they can't give you like another dose to top up, because they'll top you
Oh,
up.
okay. Yeah, yeah. I didn't realize you couldn't top up close. I knew you could top up throughout, but I didn't realize you couldn't top up like.
I think they say, because some people, if their labor's so quick, they don't have time to be
Yeah,
able
right,
to.
right, right.
Yeah, but the pushing part, I think that only lasted about 35 minutes, something like that. Considering the rest of the labor was so long, that felt like a very, very quick amount of time. But I remember the room being full of a lot of medical professionals. And I was a bit like, why are there so many people in here? And kind of being like, oh my God, like, is everything all right? Because why are there so many people? But kind of just legs spread open, like, okay, we're doing this. And all these people are seeing my bum hole right now.
I was about to say,
Um,
is that I wouldn't say that you or I are very like body shy. Like if we need things looked at, we're not shy to be like, can you look at this and tell me what you think this
yeah,
is, sort of thing. But is it quite, but that's quite different on a one-on-one sort of situation. Was it quite strange to you having someone constantly checking you down there, like to see how much you're dilated, and then
it
having a
felt
whole
weird.
team of people like around with your legs
It
spread for them?
Yeah, it felt weird. You know, like when I said I was sort of pushing, and they're all sort of like looking round, looking down there, and then just, you know, everyone putting their 2 pence in, and I'm like, oh my God, this is my body. This is so weird. Um, but yeah, I remember what, like someone saying, oh, I think we might have to use some forceps.
Oh, and you're like, nope.
And I was like, absolutely not. Did a huge push. Also, what I haven't mentioned as well is during the pushing, I honestly felt like for a minute, I either blacked out, I honestly thought I might have like died for a split second. Like, I don't know how to explain this feeling. It was like I was totally, totally out of the world. I wasn't even in the room. It was such a strange, I don't know if this is what women refer to as like being in the zone when they're in that pushing stage, but I was just like, I had my eyes closed. They had these I don't know why, but they sort of tied these pieces of material to the sides of the bed so I could pull them
Oh,
and
okay.
then push at the same
Okay.
time, which I think really helped. And I had my feet
Yeah.
up on stirrups.
Is that weird? Because you've got a massive belly in between your legs and your like your whole, so it's like you're trying to get close to it, sort of thing, to get it
Yeah, and I've
out.
got room to move. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it did really help actually. But yeah, the feeling of pushing and that sort of determination and finding that strength where you don't think you've got any more, but you kind of have to because you're already you're too far in it,
Mm,
is just absolutely crazy. But one other thing I wanted to talk about as well was like this feeling that people talk about when they first meet their baby, and this kind of
right.
overwhelming sense of love and joy and happiness all happening. I can't say that I had that crazy overwhelming feeling, and I don't know if it's because I was, you know, on these sort of painkillers and just the fact that I just pushed out a baby and it was just felt very strange,
Exhausting.
the whole situation. Like, it was a lot of emotions are going on, but I can't say I was like, ah, my God, like my heart is bursting. I don't want that to sound really bad, because it's not me saying I don't love my baby. I love her more than anything.
I don't think it sounds bad at all, because honestly, I'm sort of, I see both sides. When women are like, oh, I just completely forgot everything in that moment, I just felt so much love, I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, that's great. But I'm also like, really though? Like, like you literally have just had your body like torn apart and it's been housing life for the past 9 months. You don't feel some kind of like, oh, I just need to take a minute sort of thing for myself. Like, it's, I think it makes a lot of sense for some women to not feel that immediate feeling straight away. And I don't think either's wrong.
Yeah, I think everyone's experience is really different, but I just felt like in mine it was very much like, I don't know, we don't know each other, we are related, you were inside me, I made you.
I love how you said that to me the other day, and it was like, you were like, I've just met you. Like,
can we slow this down? No, but it was just, it was like, we are kind of strangers to each other, and we're gonna learn about each other, and we're gonna grow together. And that's how I felt, even though she's a part of me. It still felt like I was meeting her for the first time, and it was quite overwhelming in that sense.
I think that must be very overwhelming, like, considering it's you spend 9 months growing this life inside you, and all you have is movements now and then, and you're going based off of that, and then anything else is just possibilities in your head. It's nothing's concrete, and then suddenly they're here and it's like, okay, what version have we got that I've thought of potentially in my head, and sort of going from there.
Like when she was coming out and they said she's got dark hair, and in my head I think that threw me, because I was thinking, right, girl, mini version of me, rather than boy, mini version of Joe, do you know what I mean? And so it threw me a bit, the fact that she didn't have red hair like me, or I don't know, but it was a very strange time. And then Joe and I, if you listen to Joe's episode from season 1, it didn't click with us that we weren't going to get like this on-hand help all the time. So like when we were left with Mila in the hospital room for the first time, we were both like, oh my god, what do we do? Like, this is our baby, this is so strange. And it was really scary. But I think my experience of that love and that overwhelming feeling then grew over the next few days. And the more I kind of was staring at her while she was like lying in the sort of little cot in the hospital, and when I was feeding her and all these things, just that's when the bond kind of grew. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, okay, she is mine. There are still moments now where I'm still like, pinch me, I'm a mum, like, this is weird. Which is weird, because I'm that's really strange to me, because surely I'd be used to it after 2.5 years, and the fact that yes, I work, but a lot of my time is filled up with looking after Mila, so why am I not used to that yet? It's such a weird like,
I think it's also that people have to remind them, or mothers have to remind themselves, that yes, they're a mother, but they are their own person too. And I think that probably is maybe the conflicting feeling that a lot of mothers feel, or that realization, oh shit, I am a mum, sort of thing. Because you might have a moment where you're like, oh, I'm Jess, I'm me, and then you're like, shit, like, it was about to fall over, gotta go back into mum mode, sort of thing. You know, things like that. How did it feel, because you're the first mum in the group, like in our group, how did that feel for you, like being the one with the flag to go first?
Scary. Really, really scary, because I don't really have many mum friends. I have a couple, or I've got a few now, but it was really daunting. I didn't really have someone to compare notes with, and I felt like I was learning everything on my own. And also, this is something that is also not an amazing thing to I don't know, I'm worried about judgment of this, but I was worried about the judgment of being pregnant at the age that I was, because no one around me was. So I worried that sharing my pregnancy news or whatever. I didn't want someone to look at me and be like, well, she was really careless and this was obviously a mistake.
Judgment from who do you mean? Like, as in your friends, or like just anyone who
No,
knew
not
you?
necessarily friends, but like, I know I shouldn't care what anyone else thinks, but
No,
I
if you
mean
feel how you
from
feel.
anyone, family actually was one,
Right.
from like the older generations,
Yeah.
but also just people from afar who might see it like something that I've posted on social media, people who I went to school with years ago, for example. I don't know why. I wish that I enjoyed my pregnancy a lot more than I did. I wish I took more pictures. I wish I just soaked it all up and, you know, wanted to show it off more than I did.
Yeah, I feel like you kind of censored yourself out of fear in some ways.
Yeah.
But also to clarify, your immediate family were like over the moon.
Yeah.
Like your parents,
And
I remember. Yeah.
I was scared because of a lot of factors in terms of where I was going to live. I wasn't living with Joe. Financially, there were all
Yeah.
those kind of practicalities going through my head.
You had the
But I
biggest
also knew
life
that
changes all in like the
yeah,
space of your
all the
pregnancy.
life changes that come with it. But I also knew I wanted a child, and I remember telling you and Gracie, I think it was the pizza and prosecco night that we went out, and I remember saying to you like, Joe and I are gonna have a baby together. Like it's gonna happen. Like I want that to happen. It's gonna
Yeah.
happen at some point. I think both of you were kind of like, okay, like,
Well,
whoa,
I
now this is the prosecco talking.
I don't think it was that. I was more thinking, oh shit, okay, maybe wait 6 months. Like I think I was more because I was thinking mostly for the reasons that you were worried about to start with, as in like where were you going to live, financially stuff. I was just thinking,
Yeah.
just give it 6 months and then like put it on, because I remember there was one point where you were saying it to me like, I'm brooding. I was like, let's hang on, like come on, like wait like I'm not ready yet to be an aunt, like hang on. And then I remember I'd gone to California in the January of 2019 and I had this feeling that you were pregnant or that you were about to be pregnant. And I remember I came back and then literally a couple of days later you were like, I think I'm pregnant. And we went for a walk and I was like, I think you need to take a test. And then it was like the next day and you sent me the photo that you were pregnant. I was just like, oh, here we go.
I remember like Joe was so excited, he was so emotional, and I was there like,
Because Joe
oh
had been
shit.
the one who I kind of almost suggested you guys having babies before, wasn't it? Like as in quite early into the relationship.
Who did, sorry?
Joe, because I remember you saying to me he wants like a baby. I was just like, cool, let's wait. Like, and then you were like, actually, yeah, I'm like, what am I thinking, sort of thing. And then it must have been again at the pizza and prosecco, and I was like, this is going to be happening soon, but like, let's just breathe.
But here we are. It did happen, and I can't explain it. It was like this overwhelming feeling. Joe and I hadn't been together very long when I got pregnant.
Well, you had,
Yeah,
like,
and a
yeah,
bit.
like it wasn't like you just met or something. Like you had been together a year.
No, but it was just like strange how before I was with other relationships, I'd very much, I don't know, almost validate the relationship based on the length of time we've been together.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Whereas with Joe, it was slightly different, or very different. It was, I had a feeling from very early on that I just wanted to have a child with him, and I wanted to be with him. Like it was a really
Your relationship
weird.
with Joe started off differently to all of your past relationships too, actually. When I think about it, I always remember when you talk about one of the first times you went on a date with him and you were both so open and honest about personal things in your life, which you hadn't done before with other people. Not, I suppose those certain things that you were being personal about hadn't necessarily happened with your other relationships, but at this point you were just being very open with him and he was back with you. And I think that immediately set the tone for you both, like at least from the outside, the way that you explain it, I was like, that's interesting, like that you're both being this open and honest straight away, which is lovely. And I think it's continued that way, hasn't it?
Yeah, there's so much that I can say about motherhood and how it's affected my relationship and everything, my entire life. But this episode is not all about me, it's about other mums, and we have a couple of guests. So let's get to it and speak to our first guest.
We are now joined with a registered midwife, Megan Johnson. Welcome to our circle.
Hello.
Hi. So excited to have you. Let's just jump straight into it. What first got you interested in midwifery? Is it something that you've always wanted to do?
When I was really young, I wanted to be a vet, actually. So
Oh,
it was
really?
similar but different, I guess. Something to do with human bodies and everything interesting like that. And then I kind of wanted to go more like us, I guess. Always been fascinated by pregnancy. It's just a miracle in itself. My auntie became a midwife when I was probably early teens. So that probably sparked something in me to kind of think about it a little bit more. She always like went on about stories and stuff, and it was just so amazing to hear. And then I just kind of probably thought about it more, went off the vet, went more onto the midwifery, looked at unis, and then kind of committed to it, really.
Is it quite hard to get into?
I think it's easier now that you have to pay because there's less interest. When I went for it, it was funded by the NHS.
Wow, amazing.
It was a free uni degree, and you got a little bit of a bursary on top of that.
Oh, wow.
Which helped with like rent and everything.
Right.
That was essential for people doing it as like a secondary degree as well, as in like they had kids and a family, and they then had to take obviously 3 years out of their life to do a degree with not any proper income coming in. So now there's so many less people like that doing it because they can't afford to pay for a uni degree on top of actually having to run a family.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's actually a lot more younger people than older people, when it used to be quite 50-50.
Oh, okay. Is it quite a difficult career to achieve in itself, meaning not just the degree part, but actually within the degree, like what you're learning? Is it, I'm assuming it's difficult because it's the human body, isn't it? And everybody's different.
Yeah,
Is it
so
a difficult thing to do?
It's a lot of biology,
Right.
physiology and biology, but it's also a lot of looking into mental health, looking into safeguarding. I would say equally kind of mathematical brain and mental health side of things as physical.
Right. Okay.
Almost sometimes more, because the actual only physical part is the actual delivery of the baby, which is such a tiny part of the whole experience.
That's mad.
Yeah. So
do you have to work with like quite a few other professionals if you're looking at mental health side of things? And so
obviously there's the doctors that are, if there's any kind of clinical health risks in pregnancies and deliveries and things, but we now have specialist mental health midwives who
great.
kind of they're dedicated their time, and their whole job is solely around supporting women that need additional help with their mental health along with their normal pregnancy stuff. I think that's quite standard in most trusts across the UK now.
That's so good. That's so needed, isn't it? Well, I mean, what would you say the hardest part of being a midwife is? Because I feel like there's probably a lot of things, and especially versus the better things about being a midwife. Like what are the differences?
Probably, obviously the highs overweigh the bad parts, but the hardest parts is probably the long hours and switching from days to nights quite frequently. The workload since I've been back from maternity leave seems to have like trebled from before.
Oh, wow.
I think a lot of sickness, a lot of people struggling with their mental health through COVID, so they've gone off for that. It seems like there's 10 times more pregnant women coming through the door. I don't know if that's related to
it's all that time at home.
Yeah, it is. So I think it's a mixture of less staff and more women.
Oh, wow.
And it just seems crazy. It just seems crazy at the moment. Also, probably switching your personality from person to person.
Right.
You might talk to someone next door completely different to what you talk to a different patient. So it's kind of gauging that communication, I guess, quickly. So that you can build that relationship quickly.
That sounds exhausting. Like thinking, right, I've got to be really calm and caring with this person. Be like, right, military, come on, you can do this with the next.
Some people you can have a joke with, but other people think this is not the time to joke.
Right. Okay.
You just have to gauge kind of
read the room.
Yeah, exactly. Another hard thing about being a midwife is a lot of expectations of what we do is delivering babies, and it is the best part of people's lives. It's like the biggest journey that people go on mostly. But it's also a lot of sad stories, we deliver late miscarriages, stillbirths of term babies all the time, and it's not discussed enough, really. It's so common. There's usually a designated special room on labour ward of every hospital that is specifically for that.
Wow.
2-3 times a week.
I didn't know it was that.
Someone in it.
Wow.
I had no idea it was that common, like as in stillborns.
Yeah, it's a bit of a grey area on where you cut it off as kind of a late miscarriage to a stillbirth.
Okay.
But anything kind of 16 weeks and above, we see on labour ward usually, and that involves obviously delivering the baby, caring for the mum, providing as much emotional support as you possibly can in probably the worst day of their life. Also creating memories with them, so doing handprints and footprints and photos of the baby, and creating those special memories that they would never have been able to have kind of long term. So it's creating as much as possible to last them a lifetime, basically.
Yeah, that's so special that you do that. That's amazing that you do those things.
Yeah, it's difficult, and you do just go and have a little cry sometimes.
Yeah, I was going to say it must be hard to not completely attach, like to detach yourself, from, because you're human and you're a mother and you're around this sort of thing. I feel like you can't be desensitized to this.
Yeah, it's the same as what I said earlier about like reading the room. Some people would be kind of almost reassured that you're a little bit emotional about it, because it shows that you care. Whereas some people would be like, oh, like this is not your sadness, this is my sadness.
Right.
So yeah, it's difficult to read that. So I try and stay quite professional, but sometimes it's impossible.
Yeah.
Depending on the situation. But yeah, you always go and have a little cry. But that's what your colleagues are for as well, because we all do it. It's just you get allocated a room at the beginning of a shift, and you might have one like that, or you might have a completely normal delivery. It's just part of the job.
Oh, you're superheroes.
Not including Piper. Do you know how many babies you've delivered?
Yeah, I'm really sad. I still write every single one down.
I love that. I want to know.
We wanted to know if this is something like that most midwives do, if they keep track or if they don't.
I think it probably gets to a certain point where you don't, but I still feel like I'm fresh. So I've delivered 197.
Oh my gosh, Meg, that's amazing.
That's not including like the ladies that end up having a cesarean or a forceps or any kind of assisted delivery. That is purely a normal delivery. They have pushed out and I have guided that process.
Oh wow. Do you keep tally with the additional as well, like as in including the forceps?
I don't, because I think I would lose count, because there's many.
I was going to say, is it more of assisted delivery than not? If
you put assisted and cesareans together, that would probably be a lot more than the completely straightforward. Yeah.
Oh wow. Are there any myths or like things that you could maybe debunk? Like Jess and I were talking about it, and she was saying one of the ones that she always thought was about when waters break. Like you think it's going to be like the movies, like they just gush everywhere.
Waters equals baby. Yeah. Waters break, contractions happen, baby comes. That is a complete myth.
Okay, can you give our listeners a little bit more of an insight to how it might actually go down?
Some people's waters break 2 days before they have the baby. There comes to a certain point where we would induce the labour, because you don't want that barrier to be broken for too long, because the risk of infection and stuff. Sometimes the baby comes out in the sac of waters. Sometimes it never breaks. So yeah, it can happen at any point, and it has no relation to when the baby is coming.
Are there any other ones?
The speed that it looks like on TV. You get a lot of partners saying, so like, what time will it arrive? Your guess is as good as mine. Could be today, could be 3 days, like you just don't know. Birth plans, I think, are quite a tricky one, because everyone loves a birth plan, but they never really go to plan. The idea of a birth plan being like essential, you have to write everything down that you want. I think have birth knowledge, but just be very open-minded.
Right.
Yeah, my midwife said, like, let's not call it a plan. I can't remember what it was she called it. She was just kind of like in an ideal world, if everything went how you would like, what position would you like to be in? And I was like, you know, I'd like to be on my hands and knees, but realistically I was, what's it called? Epidural. That's it. So I had epidural, so I couldn't be on my hands and knees. So yeah, no, I don't think I've heard a lot of stories where they just don't
I
go
think
as
it's a good idea to have preferences and just know your options.
yeah,
Things that can happen, but you might want something completely different when it happens. Like, for example, yourself, you didn't want an epidural, but then it is hard, and you don't know that how hard it's going to be until you're in it.
To be honest, I was very open-minded with like any medication, because I was like, I'm not going to be one of those, like my mum said with my sister especially, she was like, I want to do it all natural, and then after she did it, she was like, why did I say no to
You get the same
medication?
result.
Because in my head I was like, do you know what, I don't think doctors and midwives would offer these things to me if it was going to be something that would be really detrimental to my health and my baby's health.
Right.
So I was like, whatever helps to get this baby
actually,
out.
this is a question I wanted to ask. It's sort of, I don't know if it's a myth or what, but I feel like a lot of people don't actually get what midwives are, in the sense of, you know, you have doctors, you have nurses, and you have midwives. Can you maybe explain just to people what a midwife is?
People think midwives just catch babies all day long.
Right.
And that is not what I do. So, like, for example, last night I was in the triage, so I saw probably about 30 people, and one of them might have bled halfway through the pregnancy, one of them might be contracting, one of them might have reduced movements from the baby. So, like, there's so many things that we do, and we literally see you from 8 weeks pregnant until you're about 2 weeks postnatal. So the delivery is a very, very small part of that, but we look after you all the way through, checking on the baby, checking on your blood pressure. If anything arises, we then refer you on to other people if you need like specialist help or the doctor's input. You could look after someone in labour for an entire 12-hour shift and then not deliver the baby, but you've been like one-to-one care with that person, monitoring everything. So yeah, it's a lot more than people think. Like, this midwives are different parts. I personally work in the hospital, so I don't do the checkups pre-delivery. I look after most people like in labour and immediately before and after, whereas you get your community midwives that work in the GP that just do the antenatal checkups.
Right.
So yeah, there's different roles, but that is good because people specialise in their different roles.
Yeah, that makes a lot.
So does that happen after you train as a midwife? Do you then specialise?
Yeah, so
if you want to become a community midwife, for example,
you basically decide. Yeah, they encourage you in your first year to do a bit of everything, so that you kind of solidify your kind of experience in each place, and then kind of pick the best place that suits you, I guess.
Do you remember your first experience being in a labour room?
On my own?
Well, any of it, like, see, because I think, well, yeah, the only experience I've ever seen is on TV, or you know, like one born every minute, things like that, or even in school when you see someone give birth in science class, whatever, as in on TV, not someone giving birth in class, but yeah. Like, what was that like? I can't even imagine.
I can remember the first birth I saw, and I think I just froze, but I was just like in awe of what just happened.
Yeah,
I think I had so many questions after it because I just couldn't believe what I just saw.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'd ever like watched it that in depth on TV before I'd seen it in real life. So I kind of had like a rough idea, but when I actually saw it for the first time, I was like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
Like, how did that just happen? And then you get all excited and you want to see it again and again.
What was your own pregnancy and labour experience like?
I was quite lucky. I had quite a straightforward pregnancy. There was nothing really extra that I needed to do. I could have been pregnant for years. I loved being pregnant.
Really?
I just loved.
Even up towards the end?
Even towards the end, yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean, I was overdue, and it was in the lockdown by then. So I was like, well, she might as well come because I've got nothing else to do. I'm in lockdown. I'm not working.
You were ready for a new activity.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I loved being pregnant. I loved just the feel of being pregnant. I loved finally experiencing what I did every day. Like, for other people, it was so nice to experience it from a completely different point of view.
Do you think that's helped you as a midwife? Do you feel like you understand it on another level now because you've experienced it yourself?
And vice versa. Do you feel like you understood pregnancy because you were a midwife as well?
I think there was good points and bad points about being a midwife while you're pregnant, because you know a lot more, which was good to kind of pinpoint if you were worried about anything, but also makes you worry a bit too much. Because, that could be a symptom of that, or that could be a symptom of that, and then you kind of get a bit stressed about it, but overall it was probably nice, to be a midwife. When I was in labour, that all went out the window because you're just in pain, and it just
you had a really quick labour as well, didn't you?
Yeah, it was really quick, a bit too quick. I think it shocked me.
So what happened with your waters? When did your waters break?
My waters broke as I was fully dilated.
Right.
So right at the end.
Oh my God. Okay.
What are we saying? The other side of it. Yeah, I didn't think I was missing out not being a mother whilst being a midwife, but
right.
I think I was.
Interesting.
Like, now I understand more kind of certain points of the labour when people were trying to like encourage me to do things, and I was just in so much pain going, no, I can't do that, but I was encouraging people to do those exact things before and being like, come on, you can do it. But now I know how hard that is to do when you're in that situation.
This probably sounds like a stupid question, but even though you're a midwife, do you get your own midwife as well when you're pregnant? Yeah.
And I knew mine, which was nice, because obviously I delivered where I worked.
Because I was thinking, so you were in lockdown when you had Piper, and you obviously couldn't have someone in the delivery room with you. Am I right in thinking that? Well, you could have one person, but you also knew your midwife, the person who was with you.
Yeah, she just happened to be one of my really close friends and was on shift.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
So she was my midwife. She was in theatre at the time, and she had to be swapped with someone else so that I could have her.
Oh, that's amazing.
That must be so amazing to share that moment with your friend.
It was just so like reassuring, probably quite stressful for her because she had quite a lot of responsibility being with a friend, but yeah, it was lovely.
No, I'm so pleased that you had like even though it was too quick for you maybe, but a quick and
everyone
positive experience.
You're so lucky. And I was like, but it's the whole labour just crammed into a really short period of time. I'll take that over your 24 hours.
What expectations did you have before motherhood? Like, did you have any going into it?
Mum's been a child minder for like 20 years, so I thought I had a very good expectation of what it was like being a mum, but I don't think you can ever know what it's going to be like fully until you do it, because you know it's going to be full on, you know it's going to be hard, but it is way harder but amazing. Like, it's just constant, like every second of every day you have to put yourself second, and that's fine because you understand, like, you would happily do that for your child, but it's not having that any independence anymore. I think it's what I struggle with most now, is you don't get any free time unless you arrange childcare or nursery or something else.
I do think it's so interesting listening to you speak about motherhood and Jess speak about motherhood and our other friends talking about motherhood. Most people that I ever hear, it always sounds like the seesaw effect. It sounds like this is really hard, but it's outweighed by this. Then this is such a struggle, but then this happened. It sounds so conflicting, but in a great, crazy, exhausting, wonderful way.
It is. It's exactly.
It's a bit like what you were saying, Meg, about being a midwife and how you said all the good things outweigh the bad things. And I think that's how I feel about motherhood. Don't get me wrong, there are days where I'm just like, get me out of here. but it's just like, then they'll say something really cute or like do something that might seem really simple to someone else, and you're just so proud of like the smallest things, and then you're suddenly you're just overwhelmed with this feeling of love. It's just incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
How have you found motherhood since returning back to work?
At first it was quite hard because obviously I'd been in lockdown for like her entire life pretty much, coming out of it when you can, but at first I was like, I don't want to leave her for like such long periods of time as well, doing such long shifts. But then it was nice to see actually other adults, because it felt like almost a bit social to go to work. But then since then it's actually quite nice to have that time away and not be mum for a little bit of time and use my brain for something else, and then come back. And I almost feel like I appreciate the days with her now a lot more. You get less of the days where you're like, driving me insane, because you appreciate them more because you've then not been with her for like a day or so. It balances out nicely, I think.
I completely agree with you. Are you part-time or are you full-time?
I'm part-time at the moment.
Are you looking to go back full-time, or are you quite happy?
I think after the summer I will. My sister's just gone on adoption leave, so we're going to have a nice summer We're still keeping part-time and then probably go back full-time kind of at September time, potentially when Piper starts nursery.
Right, okay.
How are you feeling about that?
Apprehensive, because no one has ever looked after Piper apart from me and my mum and my sister.
Okay.
So it'd be interesting to see how she is with that. But also, I think she'll love it. I think she'll love being around loads of kids. It will be good for her to like almost be disciplined by someone a little bit different and eat different food and play with different children. So I think it will be good for her on a social aspect. She'll be nervous at first, but I think she'll love it.
How do you feel about trusting other people with your kid? Because that's something I struggle with.
It doesn't sit well, but it's something that has to happen eventually.
Because I was going to say, with your mum being a childminder, it's kind of like, well, if it's someone who's as caring and cares for kids like your mum did with other children, does that kind of fill you with a bit more hope, like there's people like that out there?
Definitely, yeah. Knowing lots of people like my mum and my mum's friends that she's known through childcare stuff, they've picked that job for a reason. I think they love
you'd hope.
They have to do so many like qualifications these days to actually do that kind of work. You hear horror stories, so it isn't nice, but eventually they'll go to school and it will be the same kind of anxiety as it goes on. There'll always be something to worry about as a mum.
Oh my god, yeah. Are you I get the impression you're quite a laid back person, and I feel like when I see things with you and Piper, I feel like you're really chilled. But like, I mean, you say now about your anxieties and stuff around motherhood, like, were you an anxious person before? Do you think being a mum has sort of brought that out of you?
I think I was probably an anxious person before, but never really put a label on it, if that makes sense. Like, never like got so bad that I needed to like seek help or thought I needed any extra like kind of input for it. But being a mum has definitely exacerbated it. Just even like leaving the house, like you have to leave a house by a certain time, but you have to do so many extra things to prepare. And then if I'm running late, I just get so stressed and flustered. Even though even if I'm going somewhere that doesn't even matter if I'm late, it will still kind of make me a bit, I think every mother has a bit of anxiety, and it is quite comforting when other people have similar struggles. All you see on social media is the good stuff. And then when you actually talk to people and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I struggle with that too. And yeah, it's reassuring.
I'm not even a mother, but like I love when people post online. I love when people post their highlights. It's great. You want to see happy stuff. But I think it's so great when people are open and share the lows, share the like, this is the reality of being a mother. I think it's so great because you know that you're probably helping someone else. The amount of posts that I've just shared to Jess that I thought she might just like or relate to, just out of chance it comes up on my feed. I think it's great that people are able to see that online.
In the last few years it's kind of exploded as well as such a good thing, especially on like online. I think through COVID, because everyone didn't really have much to do, so it was all like everyone was on their laptops all the time. I think social media has just exploded with people showing their like mental health, and everything like that has just opened up. It's good. I think
so too. I hope it stays that way as well. I hope it's not like in the nicest way possible, and great to all the women who do have the easy life, the Instagram looking life. But sometimes I look at it and I'm like, I don't know if I believe you.
Yeah.
You've got to have some bad days, surely.
Yeah, I think so. You show what you want to show, and
absolutely.
Well, that's the thing, like if your kid's having a tantrum, you're not going to get your phone out and film it, are you? Like there's certain things, obviously, if it's a lovely moment where you're pumpkin picking like we did, that's when you get your phone out, and those are the lovely memories that you want to remember and you want to share. But the difficult times, I guess, it's just you have to be in that moment, you have to switch off from everything else, and you have to give that attention to your kid, isn't it? But then it would be nice for someone to maybe just talk about it on their Instagram without any pictures or anything like that, but just being like, do you know what, today's been tough. It's not all like rainbows and everything.
Can you imagine how strange that would be? Like you suddenly see, oh, Jess is going live, and you click on the live and it's Mila having a complete breakdown, and it's just you trying to like discipline her or something.
I think it's unethical, like personally. Like I just feel like poor Mila, like imagine her being all over Instagram, like have in a really difficult moment for her. I think that's probably part of it as well. So Meg, what advice do you have for first-time parents, but also maybe single parents as well?
I would say make sure you've got a good like support network around you, whether that's people with kids, without kids, anyone that you feel like you can talk to, spend time with, just to make the bad days easier. Materialistic things, just be prepared, but I don't think you'll ever be fully prepared until you're in that. You'll only know what's essential when you're kind of in the throes of it. Accept help if someone offers it. There's no shame in needing help. Everyone needs a day off.
I think that's such a great piece of advice. I think that applies to everyone.
I'm really hard at that.
If someone wants to cook you a meal, if someone wants to take the baby for a walk, even, although it's hard to detach yourself when they're little, even just having a cup of coffee by yourself for half an hour can just turn that day around.
Yeah.
I know when I'm having a bad day and it ends up being Piper's nap time, I'm like, yes, just an hour to myself. I can just watch a bit of TV, switch off, and then you kind of, it's just a reset. Sometimes you need a reset. But yeah, don't put pressure on yourself to be any kind of perfect parent. As long as you love them and you give everything you can to them, they'll be fine.
Love it.
I totally agree. I think like throwing out those expectations that you have before, like, oh, they're never going to watch TV, like they're going to have these amazing like Montessori activities like all day long. It's like, that's just not going to happen, is it? It's literally like survival.
As long as they're fed and they're clothed and they're clean, that's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly.
What does it mean to be a mother to you?
I think in one sentence, I would say it's the hardest job that I love the most.
Oh, I love that so much.
It's so difficult, but I wouldn't exchange it for anything.
I feel like that probably answers our final question, which is what makes up your circle. I'm assuming it's motherhood.
Yeah.
So we are now joined by our friend Chloe, who was actually our first reoccurring guest, as we had her on season 1 when she was pregnant. She has since then given birth and has a beautiful baby girl called Rosie. Welcome back to our podcast. Welcome back to our circle, Chloe.
Hello, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I kind of wanted to use this as kind of an excuse to not interrogate my best friends, but just talk about motherhood, because these are my 2 friends who are both mamas, and I thought let's actually talk about the motherhood side of things, the actual side of parenting and everything. So first of all, how are you? How are you feeling?
I'm good. I'm currently completely exhausted.
Yeah.
No, I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm
honestly,
good.
We need it.
It's a roller coaster, but it's a wonderful roller coaster. And it's one of those ones that you never want to get off. So although it's difficult and I would say it's tough at times, it's definitely something that I just absolutely adore.
Chloe, were your expectations prior to having Rosie, do they match the reality of it?
No, probably not. It's difficult because I knew it was going to be hard, and you've got everyone saying you're like, it's really hard, it's really tough, but you don't quite realise what kind of difficulties you're going to have until you're in it. And I thought it was just going to be things like sleepless nights, sleep deprivation. Yes, that is horrible at times, but there's other things that you leaves yourselves questioning. Am I doing the right thing? Is this the right, am I on the right lines with what I'm sort of helping her with? Am I not? Is she tired? Is she hungry? Is she in pain? And I think I underestimated how hard it would be. I would admit that completely, wholeheartedly.
Do you feel that way? Do you feel the same way?
I do. I already knew before having Mila that I was someone who struggles with lack of sleep. So I knew that if I didn't get enough sleep, which was very likely after having a baby, that my mental health was very likely to decline. So that was something I was nervous about. But yeah, I think completely in line with what Chloe said, like you know it's going to be hard, but you just don't know how hard until you're in it. It's just relentless because you don't get a day off. Like there's also, not everyone is fortunate enough to be in a position where they have a lot of help around them at any given time, and so there might be a day where you're really struggling and someone can't help you, or you might be feeling, what I've noticed recently is feeling ill. Like I was ill and I didn't have any child support, and I was like, this is the hardest thing in the world because I can't look after myself, but I have to look after a little human as well, so it's just, it is a lot.
I feel like as well, like I save up my emotions for either when she's having a nap or like when she's in bed, because you don't want to show them that you're stressing or like you're fed up or you're cross or whatever, because that's not fair on them, like it's not their fault. So I end up sort of like bottling it all up until the evening, and I'm just like, oh, I'm so tired, or I'm so upset, or this, that,
I
and the
mean,
other.
I think that's incredible that you're able to do that, because I tell you what, I don't have that self-restraint sometimes, and I think I'm hard on myself sometimes for that as well, but then you have to remind yourself that you're just human.
Absolutely.
And I think maybe as our girls get older as well, like maybe it's not the worst thing in the world for them to see some,
I was going to say, maybe actually
emotion.
them seeing you upset shows that it's okay for them to be upset, and then you get over it, they can get over it. So maybe I should think about that as well.
have the meltdowns in front of Rosie. That's just completely the right thing
With
to
pleasure. So much easier.
You've always been a very anxious person, just like Jess and I. But, do you feel like your anxiety's almost channeled in a different way, or is it heightened more? Like, how do you feel that you are in that sense?
It's definitely heightened, and there's things where I just think, no, I'm sure of myself, I'm sure of what I'm doing, I'm absolutely like on the ball with it. But you guys know I'm someone who hates change, and like I have to be controlled. Like I love routine and things like that, and obviously having a baby is completely throws routine out the window.
Which is funny, isn't it? Because they usually say like babies need routine, and yet there isn't really that
they
much.
They don't stick to it. Like they have their own agenda, unfortunately. So I wish they did. But I found it quite difficult, struggling with the lack of routine. And like as much as you try and stick to one, like I was saying, like it's difficult, and you've just got to learn to just go, okay, that didn't work. Just relax, let go, don't worry about it.
That's hard though. I think that's hard for a lot of people, but that's hard for you.
100%. Yeah, that's something I've really had to work on, and I'm still working on. And that's, I think, the thing that's sort of got to me the most anxiety wise is that. But even when I think I was with you the other day, Ree, and Rosie didn't nap, and I was really stressing, and she had like a 10-minute nap, and for me that's like, oh, but it was fine. She was fine, so I didn't need to stress, did I really?
No, but I completely get that, because when Mila was younger and she did nap, it was like anything that happened around that time of day, even if the nap was a bit later, I was like, oh my gosh, the repercussions for the end of the day. And the reason that I would react that way is because the end of the day for me was so sacred. It was like, that is my time, and if anything happens that's going to sabotage that time that I'll get to myself, like I'll pull my hair out. I was like, no, that's precious, those couple of hours. And you know, people always say, you've got a baby, like you must be exhausted, go to bed early. But I completely understand why mums might go to bed late, because that time, it's yourself. You don't get that throughout the day, so it's just so precious.
It's so good to hear you say it. It's so refreshing to sort of like solidify what I'm thinking as well. Like you say, like if this nap's going to be slightly longer, it means that you're going to end up going to bed later, but that's my time. You're eating into my time. And then like you say, staying up late, I want to relax, I want to do the washing, I want to do the admin, I want to do this, that and the other, but before even going to bed. And I feel like you try and get a day's work in the evening as well as trying to relax.
It's really tough.
This question goes for both of you, really. What do you feel you are unprepared for in motherhood? Because I feel like the thing is, I feel like in some ways you're unprepared for a lot of things, but I feel like mentally in some ways you are prepared for things. Like you said, you get warned about so much, so you're semi-prepared. What do you feel like you were completely unprepared for, like something that you just weren't expecting? I mean, Chloe, I know you've had your fair share of feeling unprepared because of some of the things that Rosie's gone through medically.
That's a hard one. I feel like I was unprepared for all of it. No, I mean, I did antenatal classes, so I think that gives you the bare bones, doesn't it? But it really doesn't teach you how to sort of just be a mum, really. And that's just, I think the trial and error and going through it day by day is I think in itself what I wasn't prepared for. I think as well, maybe the amount of headspace she takes up. Like I thought that I'd be able to be a mum but also a wife all at once, all the time. But that's, I don't feel like I could do that at all. And I find myself like apologising to Martin. I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I've barely spoken to you today, and like we're in the same house. And it's so strange. And then you think, oh my gosh, like I need to put the effort in there, but then I can't because my head's already in just Rosie. it's just that balance is so hard, and even after 7 months I'm still trying to work it out.
That is so true. I think it's like a juggling act, and I've definitely read some things online which have helped me, sort of mum accounts, where they say that sometimes you just got to drop some balls. You can't juggle everything all at once and expect to be amazing at everything all at once as well. I'm definitely someone who has very high expectations for myself.
100%
So I'm the same as you. If I've not like made a perfect meal for the moment where Joe's walked through the door and Mila's been asleep, and you know, I'm looking great, you know, at the end of the day. Literally, I was saying to Joe the other day, I felt so bad because every time he walks through the door, I'm there with like my fleece on, like my hair up, like in a greasy bun, no makeup. Like, I've taken all my makeup off by that point in the day. I'm in my pajamas. He sees me at my worst every single day. Romance goes out the window.
I completely agree. I completely agree. Like, I was someone who goes, right, even when I have Rosie, I'm still going to make an effort with my makeup. I'm still going to make an effort with my hair. I'm still going to make time for Martin. And now I'm like, oh, I don't need the makeup. No, it's fine. Batiste will just do my hair. I can't bother with anything else. I totally agree. They get the worst of us, don't they?
So on that same note, like, did you have any expectations for your relationship changing, and like what does that compare to now?
I don't know. I think I obviously thought that it would be a lot more Rosie, and not so much like going out and things, because Martin and I are people who love to sort of go out in the evenings, go to the pub for a drink, all that sort of thing. I've not missed that really at all. Like, and I thought that sort of the day ending at 6 o'clock when they go to bed was going to be really difficult, but again, I've not missed that at all. But I think the quality time where we're both so exhausted that we sit on the sofa looking at our phones, or just downtime kind of thing, and you want peace, don't you? So the quality time is what I've missed the most, I think. But then the time that you have together, you're just like, I'm too tired to do anything. I think that's what I found the hardest.
But are you both in the same boat about that though? Like, is Martin feeling the same? He's very happy to switch off.
yeah, totally. I think there's times where he'd like probably like a hug or something, and I'm like, I just need some me time. Like, I'm touched out kind of thing.
Touched out, 100%. That's something really, actually, I feel like people don't talk about enough. Is that was something I felt really almost like guilty for after having Mila, was that kind of like, whoa, I'm not able to keep up this like fun, sexy kind of part of the relationship all the time. And I felt like I didn't want to be touched. I was like, I'm very happy to sit on my own on the sofa because I've been holding a baby all day. Like, I've had my fair share of affection, and that's enough.
It makes you feel guilty, doesn't it? Literally, just before they were born, you were this other kind of like you said, wanting to have hugs and things like that. It makes you feel guilty that you're not sort of wanting to do that at the time. But I guess it just comes with time, I imagine. I'm just hoping.
Well, I think also Jess breastfed, and you're currently breastfeeding Chloe, and I think that obviously feeding a baby, however you feed your baby, obviously takes time and energy, but your body is literally being the life source to your child. And I think, gals who are listening, boobs can be a fun thing when you're in a relationship, but I think during breastfeeding, post labor and everything, it's not the first thing to snap to your mind, like, oh, please touch me here. It's like, I've had a baby sucking on these all day.
They feel functional. It's a really, really strange one that I really had to get my head around. I was like, whoa, okay, oh my god, I'm a completely different person now.
I completely agree with you. Completely agree.
Do you know what's really weird for me, like being the friend, seeing you both as mothers? I'd actually, Chloe, I'm not quite sure yet, maybe a few more months ago, but with Jess, I felt like Jess changed, but I don't know how to explain it. I remember when she wait, where were we? Jess was living with Joe's parents when Mila was born, and after we'd visited her in the hospital, we went round to their house maybe a couple of days later, maybe a week later or something, and she had been out with her dad or something, so we actually got there before her. And when she arrived, it was like she was in mum mode, and I was like, who the hell is this? Like, it was so weird to me, like, because I was like, I've never seen her as a mum. Bizarre, like, moment for me to see my best friend suddenly, she's now a mum, and not that I wasn't seeing her as Jess, but it was a new version. It was like an upgrade, I guess, or something. I was just like, oh my God. And it was the fact that she had only been a mother for maybe a week, and instantly it wasn't just like, hey girls, let me just do something that I've always done before. It's like, hey girls, give me a sec, and she's like, you know, putting Mila down, changing her, and I'm like, when is she going to do that? Like, when is she doing this? And I think with for Chloe, I don't know, maybe I've already expected that from Jess, so it's not been as much of a shock to me.
Yeah.
But oh my God, it was such a big shock to my system watching Jess become a mum. And I think,
see, it didn't come naturally. I didn't feel like it came so automatically naturally to me. So hearing you say that feels like you're talking about someone else. Like, I felt like I was fumbling around, like, at the beginning,
oh my God,
kind of like, what am I doing?
Look like it. And even my mum says that about you, Jess. She's always like, Jess took to motherhood like a duck to water, and I'm like, yeah, she really did.
So nice.
That's so lovely.
I know you
So
had your
nice.
struggles, as does everyone, I'm sure, but honestly, from the outside looking in, it was like, holy hell, like, she's a mum.
I think it's the control freak in me.
It is. It's funny seeing your friends become mothers, because you're just sort of like, oh wow, it's just different. And not that you were never a bad person or a bad friend before, but I've said this before, like, I think that you becoming a mother, you've become even more of like a better friend, and because you're so like attentive with your time, like with your friends and stuff, you're way more like present, or I don't know, and I don't know, I just think that it suits you very much, and I think it suits you too, Chloe. Obviously it's still fresh for you, and in my opinion, I feel like Rosie,
I'm still learning. Yeah. I'm
but
still learning.
It's amazing watching you both become mothers, and your own type of mother as well, because you're still your own person. So
yeah, Chloe, I wanted to say as well, because you we touched upon very briefly earlier that you've had, like, I hope you don't mind us saying, like, Rosie's had some slight medical issues, and what I've loved hearing through Ree is just how much your motherly instinct was switched on, and you were like, something's not right here, and you would push and push and push, like, the doctors to be like, no, hang on, no, I know my baby, something's not right, we need to figure out what it is and get to the bottom of it. Do you feel like that instinct came quite naturally to you and quite strong, or is it kind of like in those moments where it really switched on?
I think it's grown, because it's really difficult, because when you first become a mum, you don't know you know what's right and wrong, but I feel like a lot of people have been through it more than you have, if that makes sense. So when a doctor says, no, it's nothing, you're like, oh, it must be nothing then, because they've seen more babies than you have.
Right.
And I feel like the motherly instinct grew in me, and then everyone always says, trust your motherly instinct, don't they? And that's when I think I've gone, you know what, actually I do know my baby more than you do. And I think that came with me sort of getting to know her more, even after like a month or so, what she likes, what she doesn't like, etc. So I think it's definitely grown more and more, to the point where now I can just say, no, there is something wrong, I know there's something wrong, even if it's something she's going to grow out of. Why should she have to put up with it? Do you know what I mean? So that is something that I feel quite strongly about, definitely making sure that you trust your instincts, essentially. Definitely.
Do you feel like, this question goes for both of you, that a byproduct of becoming a mother has been trusting your instincts? I know, Jess, you've always trusted your instincts before motherhood, actually, because they've always been pretty spot on, but I mean, do you feel like it's been more so solidified to trust instincts, or have there been other skills maybe that you feel like you've gained from being a mother?
I definitely feel like I've never second guessed myself as much, but then also, like you said, Chloe, like in time the confidence has really built, and I don't even think it's just in things that are Mila related. I think in myself as well. I don't know what it is. I just think my perspective on life and what is kind of more important has changed quite a lot since having Mila, and it's quite refreshing. And one thing, and I've probably mentioned it 5 billion times to Ree, and I've probably mentioned it on the podcast, is boundaries. That is something I wish someone had said to me pre-having Mila, was to be firm and to be clear about your boundaries, what you're comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with, and just be confident with it, because that is what you need for your peace of mind, but also for your baby as well. Because everyone always says it, happy mum, happy baby, And it's true, like if you're feeling your most confident and you're most happy, then that's going to rub off on your parenting and on your baby.
Yeah.
So I think in the early stages, when I was feeling unhappy about something, I wish I spoke up earlier or was just a bit more confident in what I was saying. And just to be like, you know what, maybe I don't have all the answers as to why I'm feeling this way right now, but this is how I'm feeling and this is what I need from you to support me. And and just like you said, just respect it. You don't need to ask questions about it. Just accept the fact that I'm not happy. How can we change that situation? Because I'm the new mum here navigating something really difficult. So boundaries is huge. Huge.
I totally agree. I think for me it's been kind of the opposite in terms of confidence. Like my confidence in myself as a person has dropped having a baby, I think, because it's something I've not done before. Like with exams, you revise, you revise so much and then you do the exam. Do you know what I mean? And with my job, I'm used to being quite like a strong person in my job and knowing what I know and knowing policies and this, that and the other and saying yes, no, blah, 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 blah. That gave me confidence. But then being now in a job that essentially I don't know from day to day what's going to go right, what's going wrong, and you're learning as you're doing, I actually feel more vulnerable now than I did before I had Rosie. And I'm hoping, I don't know, Jess, if you can help with this one, I'm hoping that will then just get more and more. I'll get more confident with time, but it definitely hasn't given me confidence straight away. That's for sure.
No, I can definitely vouch for that. I think it grows in time.
Okay, cool.
As with everything, you'll get to know Rosie better. With every day that passes, and also eventually she'll be able to vocalize things to you.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly.
So one thing that I've struggled with recently, actually, and this is going to sound really, really silly, but it's also connected to the change thing. So I feel like, weirdly enough, I've been better with change since having Mila because I've had to surrender to it. It's happening all the time. I can't do anything about it.
So true, yeah.
But recently Mila stopped liking Peppa Pig as much, and she likes Paw Patrol. And anyone who knows Mila knows that she is obsessed with Peppa Pig. But this is not the case anymore. She loves Paw Patrol. This has actually upset me. I think it's because I felt like
I've invested so much money in all your Peppa Pig things, Mila.
that for one, I've spent a lot of money on Peppa Pig things, but also just I felt like that was almost part of her.
That was her thing.
And
totally.
And just like I felt like I knew her because I knew everything about Peppa Pig as well.
Yeah.
And now this like whole new wave is coming in. I'm like, okay, wow, and okay, we're changing, and I'm trying to like frantically learn about Paw Patrol now, so that I feel like we can talk and connect and play on that kind of level. But it's just constant change, isn't it, and constant adapting, and it's quite tiring, but you do gain confidence with it. And Chloe, do you reckon like when you go back to work again, do you think that you'll get that confidence back?
I think
like, do you feel like you're almost like you'll feel controlled again in your sort of field of expertise?
I think so. I think it'll take time because it'll be the first time I've left her properly for like a long time, and it's obviously the first time she's going to get to nursery and things like that, so I think it will take a good couple of months for me to sort of feel confident again. But I think although motherhood does define people,
a part of you,
I also feel like I don't want it to be the be all and end all. Does that make sense? Like I want motherhood to be part of my life, not my whole life. And I don't know if that's something that's actually a little bit I don't know, selfish, but I have my career as well, and I want that to be sort of parallel with motherhood. And I think that's something I'm just going to learn. And I might find, and I definitely agree with you, Jess, in that my values and things have changed since having Rosie, and my career isn't the top of my head, and I don't think it ever will be now, but it's still important that I do return to that and get more confident as I'm going through it.
Good for you. I think that's so important to highlight. You know, even the fact you felt you had to say that's selfish, like that's probably
that's so
you. No, but it's probably you feeling like you have to say that line because it's almost you can't say the right thing nowadays. Like someone's going to be offended either way at the fact that you don't want to give up your entire life to be a mum, or you know, the fact that you care, you know, you're still giving up some of your life to be a mum. Like, someone's going to be offended by it, but I think it's amazing because, like I mentioned before, like, you have to look after yourself in order to be the best version of you. And essentially, growing up, you want to see Rosie see you loving doing something
absolutely
outside of being a mum as well. You know, you'll be looking up to you and being like, wow, my mum's an amazing physio, and that's so cool. And, you know, I think that's what helped me when I was starting back at work. I was thinking, you know, Mila's not going to be small forever, and yes, it's going to be really hard at the beginning when we're separated, but also one thing, and again, I always bring a psychological element to things. You're welcome, listeners. But I also read about, and I remember studying about this at uni as well, is attachment styles.
Yeah.
And if you've got a really secure attachment with your baby, when you are apart and you're used to being apart from each other, to see them build strong relationships with other people is actually a compliment to you and your relationship with you and your baby, because that's their first relationship that they formed, and that's their template going forward with other people.
So interesting.
Yeah, and I love that, and it made me feel really good, because I was like, at first, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, oh gosh, she's really, you know, she absolutely adores her grandparents. Like, oh my god, what, she loves them more than me. And I know that sounds really crazy, I'm totally aware of that, but actually when I saw it in that way and I reframed it, I was like,
so nice, isn't it?
Yeah, actually I was like, well, yeah, maybe I did do a really good job, and it's all down to me.
Yeah. Kudos. Take a bow.
Yeah.
That's so lovely. That's such a nice way of looking at it.
I want to know from you both, where the hell do you get your energy? Because I feel like I'm tired most days. I don't have a child to even think about. I don't know how you both do it.
Go on, Chloe. You told us for first thing that you're exhausted today. Where have you summoned that energy from?
Get it. I don't know how we do it. I actually don't know, because before, if I did one thing in the day, I'd be like, oh, I'm exhausted, I need a nap or whatever. I don't know how we do it. I think your body gets used to it, and you learn to sort of get used to it, with particularly the sleep deprivation.
Right.
I don't know, for me, I think I get excited about the day with her and different activities.
Right.
So
okay.
Although I'm potentially exhausted, I'm like, I'm so excited to see how she looks in this, or how does she behave in that, or
but like overrides it.
Her, like her lunch. What does she think of her lunch? Which is really boring, isn't it? It's just lunch. But then there are other days that I think I'm like, I could just rather just lie on the play mat with you, and you can just play and I'll just watch. I think it's even things like going to the toilet. I'm like, I'll just sit here for an extra 5 minutes.
I completely agree with you. I just like, I'm not gonna lie, there are some days where I'm just like, I really need some time to myself, so I will put the TV on and you can watch Paw Patrol for half an hour while I switch off, because I really need it. But it's definitely hard when they're younger and they don't have that attention span as well. I think that's really hard, but I love the fact that you're kind of drawing from all of the, almost like the little wins and like the small things to get excited about, because I think even down to like meals, I used to love that as well, like introducing something new and just seeing their reaction to it. I think it's great to like focus on those small things, and it's really hard to do sometimes, I think, but just to kind of stop and appreciate those little things probably helps not to like wish the day away, because I think it's really easy to do that as well, to be like, oh, I can't wait till the evening and let's just get it out of the way. But
I do that all the time.
I think you are both phenomenal mothers, and I think it's a great day to celebrate you both. So happy Mother's Day to you both. I would like to thank both Chloe and Meg for joining this episode. And this episode is dedicated to two charities, organisations. The first one being the Shooting Star Hospice, which is a leading children's hospice charity, which is for caring for babies and children and young people with life-limiting conditions and their families. This is across all of Surrey and London. And it's been something that's, it's not been in our lives in the sense of we've known people in there, but we've grown up with a hospice right around the corner from where we all grew up, so we were very much aware of this hospice, and it's quite embedded, I think, into most people's when our
Definitely.
so that is shootingstar.org.uk. You can find them online at SSC Hospices. And the second one is sands.org.uk at SANS charity. So SANS is the leading stillbirth and neonatal death charity in the UK. Another important organisation and charity to support, especially with the facts that Meg gave us earlier in this episode. So if you could please check those out. The links are in our description across all of our streaming platforms and on YouTube. And of course, we'll be putting this on our socials too.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
I feel like I've just spoken about how difficult motherhood is, but for anyone actually listening, it is the most amazing job. It is incredible. I think because not enough people talk about how the difficulties of motherhood.
Yes, I was just about to say.
Talk about that. It is the most incredible job. It's the most rewarding job, and just watching their little smile is just amazing. So I hope I haven't put anyone off.
No, but you know what? You're being honest. I think, do you know what? If someone's been put off, then that's fine. I think that's absolutely fine. And if you've encouraged more people, then great. Tell us about your R-Circle babies. Thank you everyone for listening. Happy Mother's Day to all the mamas out there. And thank you, Chloe, for joining us. And we'll see you all for our next episode. Bye.
Bye.